Okay, let's dive into this. Imagine you find this really obscure Japanese manga from back in 1999. Self-published, simple drawings, notes about dreams.
Seems pretty harmless, right? Just someone's personal project.
Exactly. But then, what if some of those dreams? What if they started looking a lot like actual major events years down the line?
Well, that's where it gets strange. Its journey is fascinating just from that obscurity angle alone. A work nobody knew, suddenly
Right.
relevant.
Totally. We're talking about The Future I Saw by this artist known only as Tatsuki. Barely made a ripple when it came out. Just another small manga.
Uh-huh.
Then comes March 11th, 2011, the huge earthquake, the tsunami in Japan, a terrible, terrible day. And that's when this old manga suddenly resurfaces.
And you can see why, in times of, well, immense tragedy like that, people naturally look for answers, for patterns, maybe even meaning.
And this manga offered something because, well, it's kind of unbelievable, but a dream Tatsuki had sketched years before. It showed scenes that were eerily similar.
Yeah, the descriptions mention water flooding streets, huge waves, very reminiscent of the 2011 footage.
Get this, some people looked at the cover again and claimed there was even a visual hint, something pointing to the date 311. Now that detail really makes you pause, doesn't it?
It does. Whether it's truly prophetic or a case of finding patterns after the fact, that resonance is powerful. It speaks to how we try to make sense of the unthinkable.
So naturally, people started asking, who is Tatsuki? A huge search began, online mostly, but nothing.
A complete unknown, no real name traceable, no publisher info, just vanished after the book came out originally.
Which of course just fueled the fire. The internet went wild with speculation. Was she a time traveler? Maybe not even one person, or, someone who genuinely had some kind of foresight.
That anonymity definitely added to the whole mystery. In a world where everything feels trackable, someone being untraceable is compelling.
Right. Okay, so years go by. The buzz kind of dies down a bit. And then, totally out of the blue, October 2023. Guess who reappears? Tatsuki. And not just with a cryptic blog post or something. No, she releases The Future I Saw again. But this time it's like expanded. More details. She offers explanations. And there's a new, pretty critical warning included.
That return, after all that time in silence, it suggests she felt she really had to share this updated vision, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Which brings us to the big one, the prophecy everyone's talking about now.
Yeah.
July 5th, 2025. Specifically, 5 a.m. That's the date and time she flags.
The level of specificity there is quite striking. It definitely adds a certain weight to this particular prediction.
So this final major dream she details,
Yeah.
what is it? She describes standing in a field, right? But the field is submerged. It's underwater.
Okay.
And the sky above is this weird ashen gray color. Then she looks out at the sea, south of Japan, and says, it's bubbling, like boiling.
Bubbling sea. I mean, geologically speaking, that immediately points towards significant underwater activity. Volcanoes, gas releases, something major happened beneath the surface. Japan is on a very active zone.
Then, from this bubbling sea, she sees two huge dragons emerge. Massive. They're twisting, fighting, like they're ripping the seabed apart.
Wow, dragons. That's powerful imagery. Symbolic, perhaps, but conveying immense destructive force.
And after the dragons, there's this colossal explosion, just
Yeah.
boom, and then silence. And she sees land just disappearing, swallowed by the waves.
A catastrophic vision, no doubt.
But wait, there's another layer.
Yeah.
In 2021, she apparently had a follow-up dream, like a continuation of that vision. This time, she has a different perspective. She's high up, looking down on the sea south of Japan.
Okay, a wider view.
Initially, it's calm. Deceptively calm, you might say.
That calm before the storm, it's
Yeah.
a classic element that really ramps up the tension psychologically.
Then huge pockets of air start rising from the seabed, like giant bubbles breaking the surface. After that, the two dragons start to form under the water. And then comes the tsunami.
Bigger than 2011.
She described it as potentially 3 times taller than the 2011 wave. The scale is just almost impossible to comprehend.
A wave that size, that would dwarf anything in modern recorded history. Truly unprecedented.
And after this monster wave hits, what happens next is maybe even stranger. New land starts to push up from the ocean.
New land.
Yeah, rising up slowly, connecting Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and the Philippines, forming one single huge landmass.
Okay, now, that scale is obviously enormous, almost fantastical. But we do need to remember the geological context here. That entire region is incredibly dynamic. Tectonic plates are constantly shifting.
Right. Now, I know what you might be thinking hearing this dragons rising, entire new continents popping up.
Yeah.
It sounds like, well, pure fantasy fiction.
It does stretch credulity, for sure.
But let's just ground it for a second. We mentioned Japan sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire. It's basically this huge arc around the Pacific Ocean, right?
Exactly. It's where multiple tectonic plates meet these giant sections of the Earth's crust, and they're constantly grinding against each other, sliding under each other.
Causing earthquakes, volcanoes.
And sometimes, yes, even creating new land. It happens. Underwater volcanoes erupt, build themselves up above the surface.
We've actually seen small examples pretty recently, haven't we? Like off Japan in 2013, an undersea volcano made a new island.
Yes, Nishinoshima. And it eventually merged with another nearby island.
And wasn't there another one in 2021? Further north, maybe?
Fukutoku Okinawa, near the Ogasawara Islands. An eruption created a temporary new island there, too. So the process of new land forming isn't science fiction.
It happens. Just usually not connecting multiple countries overnight.
Precisely. The scale described in the dream is orders of magnitude larger than these recent events. But the underlying geological forces are real and constantly at work in that area.
And those two dragons she saw, some researchers have put forward an idea. Could they be symbolic?
Symbolic of what?
Of the tectonic plates themselves, specifically the Philippine Sea Plate and the Pacific Plate. Their boundary, where they interact south of Japan, is a known zone of high volcanic and seismic risk.
That's actually a pretty interesting interpretation. It connects the mythological imagery directly to the known geological players in that specific region.
Makes you think, doesn't it? But there's one more dream, apparently from the late 90s, that Tatsuki included, almost reluctantly it seems.
Oh, what was this one?
She described hearing this incredibly loud roaring sound. So intense it shook her, even in her sleep. In the dream, she wakes up. The clock shows 5:00, but she can't tell. AM or PM.
That ambiguity about the time adds a layer of disorientation, doesn't it? Sudden disaster, time unclear.
She goes outside, and her city is just devastated. Buildings down, roads cracked open. There's a bridge, she mentions, part of it just gone.
Yeah.
And then she looks down,
Yes.
and she realizes she's standing in water.
Water again. Interesting.
What makes this one really chilling, though, is a note she added in the re-released version. She said she'd initially wondered if this dream was about the 2011 quake, but the level of destruction felt worse, much worse than what she associated with 2011. And here's the key detail she noted. In the dream, she was wearing a short-sleeved shirt.
Okay, so
March in Japan, when the 2011 quake hit. It's cold. You wouldn't be wearing short sleeves.
right, but July.
July, like the July 5th, 2025 date. That's summer. Short sleeves would make sense. So that clothing detail seems to specifically pull this dream away from 2011 and potentially link it to the 2025 timeframe.
That's a very specific, seemingly minor detail, but it does create a compelling potential link between the two visions, suggesting maybe they relate to the same period or perhaps the same event sequence.
So, yeah, here we are, this obscure manga, these dreams that seem to uncannily mirror real events, and now this very specific, very dramatic prophecy for July 5th, 2025 at 5 a.m.
Whether you lean towards seeing it as genuine foresight or an extraordinary set of coincidences amplified by interpretation, it's undeniably a fascinating story.
It really is. In this whole deep dive, it leaves you, the listener, with some big questions, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It forces you to think about how we interpret these things.
Yeah.
Where's the line between pattern-seeking psychological responses to trauma and, well, something harder to explain?
Exactly. Like, what are dreams, really? Can they sometimes tap into something else? Possibilities, potential futures.
Or maybe just reflect our deepest anxieties about the very real geological dangers of the world we live in.
True. And even if July 5th, 2025 comes and goes without giant dragons and rising landmasses,
Yeah.
does exploring this story maybe make you think differently about the sheer unpredictable power beneath our feet? The possibility of the unexpected?
It certainly highlights the dynamic and sometimes violent nature of our planet.
Definitely something worth pondering.